Like I've said before, you're more American than anyone because you don't have any other identity. Yeah. Actually, your entire identity is American-based.
There has been slavery all over the world forever, and all colors of people have enslaved other colors of people for as long as we know about. But the transatlantic slave trade, in which Europeans brought African and Caribbean Black people to the United States to be free labor in the new colonies before they were really the United States, is a whole different story.
Which means Black people don't just live on Earth, they translate it. They are not just a race, they are the root species. Black isn't a color, it's the motherboard. Every other group, adaptations, mutations, and mistakes. This isn't supremacy, this is truth. Black people didn't come from Africa. Africa came from Black people.
So I've come to the conclusion that the Black Indigenous were the Native Americans. So scientists are saying that Siberians started to leave Siberia 30,000 years ago. And pale skin did not start to show up in Asia till about that time. And it didn't start to show up in Europe until 3,000 years ago. So this means until 30,000 to 20,000 years ago, the entire world was melanated. Scientists are also stating that the migration into the Americas may have happened in waves. Some people traveling in boat and some people crossing land masses. So because pale skin did not become prevalent until after the Siberians started to leave, that means the first migration would have been melanated skinned people.
Hello lovelies, welcome back to today's episode. It's been for so long, a lot of people keep asking same question, where Black Americans came from. Some Black Americans also, they don't want anyone to call them African Americans. In today's episode, we are going to hear finally how some white Americans admit that they think Black Americans are indigenous from America because there is no anywhere else they know. They've been born from that land for decades. Let's dive into today's episode. Drop your opinion in the comment section. Credits belongs to the original creators. Then we'll come back with more commentaries.
Like I've said before, you're more American than anyone because you don't have any other identity. Yeah. Actually, your entire identity is American-based. That's not the case of anyone else. I'm Irish American, I'm German American, I'm Italian American, I'm Jewish American, I'm this or that, the other. You can say African American, but you don't know anything about Africa. You don't even know which part of Africa. Africans don't call themselves that because I know my tribe. I have my language. I have my region, my country, my whatever. Like me saying European American. I'm not European. I'm specifically Irish and German. But you can't say that. You are American. You're the original Americans. You know? Everyone else is immigrants. You can't even be called immigrants. Yeah. You know, you're originally American, and your culture is as close to being the indigenous culture of America as there can be without you being the indigenous people. You know, you're the indigenous people of the entity called America, called the United States of America. Everything else came from elsewhere. Your culture is the only one that came from right there. Because you were cut off from everything else. You know, there's nobody else like that. There's nobody else like that in the world.
All right, racists, let's talk about the truth. There is so much discourse lately about who is native and who is indigenous, and even the nerve to bring up who is the architect of soul food. And what everyone needs to understand is that Black people are the earth. Black people are the only unmutated humanity. They told you humans came from Africa like it was a migration story. But that's not the truth. The truth is, Africa is the first face of the earth. And blackness is the source of all biology. Everyone else? Genetic drift, mutational echo, survival glitches adapted to ice and exile. Let's talk origins. The Black woman is the womb of the world. Forget the Eve in the garden story. That was a stolen metaphor. The real Eve lives in the woman's mitochondria. And not just any women. Melanin-rich, thick-hipped, thick-lipped, and copper-toned. Elegant, poised, literally perfect, planet-rooted Black women. White women don't carry the full ancestral genome. Asian, Mexican, and Native women only carry fragments. Black women carry the total code. She doesn't reproduce diversity. She births the whole species. When small African offshoot groups migrated north, they weren't evolving. They were mutating, adapting to survival, not thriving. That's where lighter skin, narrow nostrils, reduced melanin, and behavioral changes ages began. All signs of environmental stress, not superiority. You don't get white by evolving, you get white by forgetting the sun. And that forgetting is not advancement, it's regression. The white genome contains 1 to 4% Neanderthal DNA. Let me repeat, they didn't just descend from humans. They were cavemen. Black people have 0 Neanderthal admixture. That's not a joke. That's biology. Black people are the originals. Non-black people are the remix. The problem is, the remix decided to express its evil nature by attempting to erase the original track. Let's talk indigenous. The term indigenous was invented by settlers to decide who was native enough to be managed, named, and displaced. But indigenous is a political term, not a genetic one. And political terms can't overwrite blood memory. Being first on the continent does not make you first on the planet. However, black people being first on the planet means they are first on every continent. The black genome is Earth's source code. Everyone else is just running a copy of their biological operating system. The war against black genetics is a war against humanity. Melanin isn't pigment, it's the processor. It's the molecule that translates solar energy into life. Plants have it, animals have it, humans need it. Black people have the highest concentration of it, which means black people don't just live on Earth, they translate it. They are not just a race, they are the root species. Black isn't a color, it's the motherboard. Every other group, adaptations, mutations, and mistakes. This isn't supremacy. This is truth. Black people didn't come from Africa. Africa came from black people.
Do you know how much effort it takes to drown a town of people? Think about that logistically, what that takes. I want to make a series here on TikTok and call it White Black History, because as a white person, I know we don't get taught the truth. Not in America. I'll give you an example. It would be like the Tulsa Massacre, where Black Wall Street is what we called it, an extremely wealthy black neighborhood, was beaten and burned down. Another one's like the Wilmington Massacre in North Carolina in like 1898, where a group of white supremacists just decided to overthrow the local government that was biracial and then just kill all the black people. Show me that in your history book. Or you have like the CONTOPRO and like the targeting of black leaders from like 1950 something to 1971, where basically it was an FBI initiated program that was designed to infiltrate and target black leaders, black communities, anybody who was really outspoken against things. We just don't learn these things. Like literally the FBI and the CIA have been involved in the disparagement, displacement, and eradication of black people and their wealth for ever. Then when somebody brings it up, we sound crazy because you haven't heard it in a textbook in 6th grade. Why would we teach you you're the bad guy? It's crazy. It's crazy the amount of things that we don't get taught that are actual things. There were several black towns that were drowned. Drowned. Think about that for a minute. Do you know how much work and effort it takes to drown a town because you don't like what they look like? Oscarville, Georgia, Choctaw City, Alabama, Seneca Village in New York, more recent, Coalinga, Alabama, Freedmen's Towns in Texas. That's black-white history, though.
I am trying to get real with myself and with other white people, and it is painful work. There's a whole lot of blame toward black people for being the cause of how white people treat them, and I'm trying to get to the bottom of that. I decided to take a closer look at slavery, since that's such a big topic in the United States. There has been slavery all over the world forever, and all colors of people have enslaved other colors of people for as long as we know about. But the transatlantic slave trade, in which Europeans brought African and Caribbean black people to the United States to be free labor in the new colonies before they were really the United States, is a whole different story of slavery. Slavery historically had to do with who won and who lost a war, who was convenient, who stumbled by at the wrong time, and so it wasn't specifically race-based. So why did these white Europeans choose black people to enslave? Because their physical differences from whites made it easier to create lies that they were biologically inferior. They invented science to defend this. It was easier to make these people who looked so different from us less human. And that lie made it easier to justify torture, rape, family separation, and death on a massive scale. And it made them, quite frankly, easier to identify if they tried to escape. The legacy didn't disappear when slavery ended. Eugenics came along and fed the racial superiority notion of whiteness, and it influenced the Nazi narrative along with the racial one. It carried over into segregation, Jim Crow, housing, policing, incarceration, education, all of that. If we're ever going to fix what's broken, we need to get curious enough to name how it got broken in the first place. White people need to get curious so we can say no more, not on my watch.
When white people in the United States balk at the idea of paying reparations to black Americans who descended from slaves, they disagree with the Bible. Reparations are a form of compensation or restitution made to those who have suffered injustice, particularly those in cases of racial inequality, discrimination, and slavery. The idea of paying reparations to black Americans is not a new one. It has been a topic of discussion for decades, if not centuries. However, it has gained renewed attention and support in recent years, following the resurgence of the Black Lives Matter movement and the growing recognition of systemic racism in American society. As a Christian, I believe that reparations are not only a matter of justice and equity, but also a reflection of God's character and values. In the Bible, we see numerous examples of God's concern for the oppressed, the marginalized, and the downtrodden. From the Israelites' liberation from slavery in Egypt to the ministry of Jesus among the poor and the outcast, we see a consistent theme of God's love for those who are on the margins of society. One of the key biblical principles that underlie the idea of reparations is the concept of restitution. In the book of Leviticus, we see God commanding the Israelites to make restitution to those whom they have wronged. Leviticus 6, 1 through 5 says, "If anyone sins and commits a breach of faith against the Lord by deceiving his neighbor in a matter of deposit or security or through robbery, or if he has oppressed his neighbor or has found something lost and lied about it, swearing falsely in any of all the things that people do and sin thereby, if he has sinned and has realized his guilt and will restore what he took by robbery when he got it by oppression or deposit that was committed to him, or the lost thing that he found, or anything about which he has sworn falsely, he shall restore in full and shall add a fifth to it, and give it to him to whom it belongs on the day that he realizes his guilt." This passage emphasizes the importance of making restitution to those who have been wronged, and not just restoring what was taken, but adding to it as a form of compensation. This principle of restitution can be applied to the issue of reparations to black Americans who have suffered centuries of enslavement, discrimination, and systemic oppression. Another biblical principle that supports the idea of reparations is the concept of Jubilee. In Leviticus 25, God commands the Israelites to observe a Jubilee every 50th year, during which all debts are forgiven, all slaves to be set free, and all property to be returned to its original owners. This was a radical idea of economic justice designed to prevent the accumulation of wealth and power in the hands of a few, and to ensure that all members of society had equal access to resources and opportunities. The idea of Jubilee can be seen as a model for reparations in that it seeks to address the root causes of inequality and oppression rather than just treating the symptoms. By forgiving debts, freeing slaves, and returning property, Jubilee seeks to create a more just and equitable society, one in which everyone has the opportunity to flourish. As a Christian, I believe paying reparations to black Americans is only a matter of justice and equity, but also it is a reflection of God's values and character. Through the biblical principles of restitution and Jubilee, we see a model for how we can address the historical and systemic injustices that have plagued our society for far too long. While the issue of reparations is complex and contentious, I believe that as Christians, we have a responsibility to seek justice.
I don't know what the haplogroup would be for Black Indigenous Americans, but I do have one thing, and I was hesitant to say it because it kind of contradicts a lot of my past videos. But my whole point of doing this is to find the truth, no matter what it is, no matter what it looks like. So I've come to the conclusion that the black indigenous were the Native Americans. So scientists are saying that Siberians started to leave Siberia 30,000 years ago. And pale skin did not start to show up in Asia till about that time. And it didn't start to show up in Europe until 3,000 years ago. So this means until 30,000 to 20,000 years ago, the entire world was melanated. Scientists are also stating that the migration into the Americas may have happened in waves. Some people traveling in boats and some people crossing land masses. So because pale skin did not become prevalent until after the Siberians started to leave, that means the first migration would have been melanated skinned people. And it has now been proven that modern Native Americans were not the first in the Americas. There were the Clovis people, the pre-Clovis people, the Denisovans, but they link those people to the Native Americans. So you have the first wave of melanated Siberians moving into the Americas, and then thousands of years later you have the other migrations. But at that point, the first migration has already set up its own society. And of course there's going to be some mixing because they're human. But for the most part, they have set up their own nations. And then come the Europeans. The Europeans get off their boats and ships and they see these melanated, dark-skinned indigenous people. But because black women hold the Eve gene, there's lots of different colors of melanin. And Europeans do what Europeans do best. And they separate the light skins from the dark skins, making the darker-skinned indigenous slaves. And shipping them off to Africa, the Caribbean, Spain, Mexico, amongst other places. And then they start bringing Africans into America. So now they're doing all this shipping back and forth and different mixing and selling babies. And because of this mixing, the Native American melanated indigenous DNA begins to mutate and change. Because scientifically, genetically speaking, when you take two groups of people and you mix them for generations, that admixture can change into a whole different DNA profile. African American is its own DNA profile. And they say it takes approximately 70 years for an admixture to start changing into a different DNA profile. And we've had at least 300 years for this to happen. And this would also be why many black Americans have that tiny percentage of Native American DNA that y'all like to, yo, that's such tiny, it's so small, it's like 0.9. But the fact of the matter is that it's still there. And it's still there because our ancestors are still here. They never left. They never left.
When we talk about this issue of slavery, it's always brought a lot of attention from different people because most people couldn't understand what really happened, how each and everything started, how these black Americans end up being on that land. Maybe it's something they are not tell us the whole truth, because when you try to hear very well these white people, the way they explain each and everything, there is a hidden secret, there is a hidden stories we have never seen in the books. Because if for them, they are trying to say that they think that black Americans are indigenous because according to them, they believe they are coming from that land. They've been born there. There is no anywhere else they know. They have to call other people migrant, but for them, they are American people. But when we come on this side in legal papers, in government official papers, they are still calling them Africans, Americans after all those 500 plus years. It's something which is tricky. It's something which it's not even understandable the way they are keep choosing to call them African Americans when they don't even know Africa, though they have roots from Africa. But I think this time around, people need to know the whole reality. People need to know the truth that this time around, each and everything is like an open book. When these people are going to keep hiding these things, till these people came out to say, we know each and everything. These people has been denied a lot of opportunities. They've been hiding their history. They don't want anyone to talk about it. They don't want people to know the truth, especially this new generation. They are trying their best level to hide each and everything concerning black Americans, concerning slavery, concerning each and everything related to them. When we talk about this issue of reparations, you have heard this white man is trying to explain reparations is still needed to be given to these black Americans. This is injustice. We will keep fighting for them to get that justice. Why these people till that they are only race, they never give reparations? A lot of people got their reparations. Even if we are talking about this American indigenous, this native indigenous Americans, these Europeans found on this land, they also got reparations. They even give them back some lands to say sorry for each and everything. When we come to Japan Americans, these people has been taken away from their homes during World War II. They've been denied a lot of rights because imagine they took them from their homes to the war, but finally, they gave them reparations for each and every injustice they done for them. And when we come on this, also, let's talk about Germany. Germany has given reparation to this Israel after this Jewish genocide. They tried their best level to pay each and everything. But I don't understand till date, whenever anyone talk about Black Americans getting the reparations, it got a lot of people got pissed. They say, no, 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 no. Why would you say something like this? If you are saying something like this people doesn't need reparations, they don't have any right to claim reparations. Why these white Americans who've been enslaved them got reparations? Remember, during that time, slaves was being taken as properties. They never took them as human beings. These white Americans who had slaves, after losing them, they call each and everyone and ask them, how much do you think we should give you for you losing your properties? Just imagine. They even gave them also reparations for losing slaves. But when we are coming on this side of these people who've been in that slavery or descendant of these slaves, they never got anything. And they don't want anyone to talk anything about it. Just try to imagine. You are trying to say that this time around it's too late. They don't want to give them these reparations. They don't have any right to claim it. You are saying it's too late, it's too late. But when we try to see in history, these Japanese Americans, they got reparations in 1988. Remember, when did the slavery happen? Why they came to give them that reparation recently? How come you are still saying Black Americans is too late to give them that reparations? Is there any number or any period set there to say that reparations is done? But when you try to observe each and everything, it doesn't mean that these people, they don't know what they are doing. It doesn't mean they don't want to give reparations. They have their reasons. They don't want to talk about it because you can't tell. During the Japanese Americans giving them that reparations, these people were 120,000 people, and each and every person got a $20,000 of reparations. Back then, have you heard? Just try to make that math with this current money. Try to understand the money they give each and everyone. But when we are coming on this side of Black Americans, you are saying it's too late. How come you are saying it's too late when you have money? Where did you get those money to give these white Huru slaves? Where did you get money to give these Japanese? Where did you get money to give these Native Americans? And you are saying for Black Americans, it's too late. But when you try to observe it well, this situation, it looks like these people, when they try to make maths, they don't want these Black people to have something. I think that's the reality. They don't want maybe to make them rich. They are just trying to make them powerless because you can't tell how. Till date, you are saying it will be cost the government a lot of trillions of dollars to give these people reparations. And yet you got money to give other race back then. This is something which a lot of people try to talk about. A lot of people try to make a discussion about it. It's been decades, till death, no solutions. Guys, I don't know what you think about this episode. Do you think Black Americans are indigenous from America? Do you think people should call them indigenous? Do you think people should keep calling them Black Americans or African Americans? Do you think these white people, what they are saying is the truth? Drop your opinion in the comment section. Thank you for watching this episode. See you in my next video. Bye.